Hello and welcome to Tartan Touchdown, your conversation with the world of flag football. Now, we're just around 2 weeks removed from World Flag 2026. Fantastic tournament. We've already done one episode with the Tartan Touchdown team's reflections on the tournament. In this week's episode, we speak to essentially the voice of flag football, Kate Allman, who commentated on a number of fixtures at this tournament. Let's get to her reflections. Let's get to the interview. So join me now. We have someone who many consider to be the voice of flag football, including ourselves. We've got Kate Allman. Kate, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, thank you so much for that. That's a huge compliment from the Tartan Touchdown. I appreciate it, Gav. Yeah.
And of course, we've had you on the podcast before, but it's great to have you back. And of course, it's 10 days since the dust has settled and World Flag. So there's been a lot of talk already, but we really want to get your perspective in terms of the view from the broadcast booth and your experiences of this tournament. Of course, you've called the World Games and some of the epic moments there. But of course, there's a lot of drama happening in Germany, and it'd be great to get your insights.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the World Games is slightly different, I guess, and Dusseldorf is another step up. But I think at every single tournament we're having internationally under IFAF and elsewhere with flag football, the standard is elevating so much. And I think you would agree. Every single one is just getting better and better. So much excitement, so many storylines. I think 200 media accredited at the World Championship and a very different environment to Chengdu, which is China and a little bit more enclosed. It was awesome also to have the men's teams there. And I think men and women playing at the same event site, crossing over on the same days is such a great part of flag football. I just love it, the gender equality. So, yeah, Dusseldorf leveled up and IFAF, congratulations on a fantastic tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think my perspective on it is it's probably the best it's ever been, but it's probably the worst it's ever going to be going forward just because this sport keeps on growing.
That's a fair point. And if so, brilliant. If that is our lowest that we can go, if that's the bar and we're going to keep vaulting over, I'd be very happy with that. But I mean, it was so impressive for so many reasons, which I guess we'll get into.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the experience for yourself as someone that's been on the ground in Lahti at the previous World Championships and, of course, calling the action in Chengdu at the World Games, it was a little bit different for you this time. Do you want to talk us through your experience of commentating?
Yeah, for sure. I was in Lahti 2 years ago, which is crazy. It feels like just yesterday. And obviously on the ground in Chengdu for the World Games and various other tournaments. But this year I am pregnant and I'm actually 8 months pregnant. So I'm probably due in 3 weeks, which is quite crazy. And it was a little bit too late to travel from Australia to Germany. So we had to make some accommodations for me to be able to lend my voice to the tournament. And for that, I'm so grateful, to be honest, to IFAF and the NFL for including me. So I was commentating remotely, which is kind of a standard thing in the modern world. Since COVID, I think remote commentary has become very common and we've got great tools to do it. So fortunately, it's not something I'm unfamiliar with, but it does lend its own challenges. And especially, being 8 months pregnant, I think getting up at 3 a.m. with the time difference, and the second game on the semi-final night was 4:30 a.m. because everything ran late. Trying to get yourself in the mood of being at a sports stadium and feeling like you're watching this live and in the action is a difficult thing. It's something you have to get a mindset for. Having said that, I was so involved in all the content and so watching everything so closely, I felt like I was almost there all week. There was so much content out there. I've never seen anything like it. So I was really immersing myself in there. But I got to say, I went to bed when the birds were chirping here in Australia, which is probably a great training for, a lot of people said it's great training for when you have the newborn. So thank you to everyone who involved. But I do want to say a massive thank you, I guess, to those people involved in the broadcast at the NFL and IFAF, because behind the scenes, that's what was going on. And nobody listening at home, certainly very few people, would probably realise that there was an 8-month-old woman commentating play-by-play, which is so unusual. As you know, it's so unusual to have women in that role as lead commentator in many sports, and they've done that for me and given me those opportunities over the years. And now to sort of continue supporting me at every stage of life, I think is a really great reflection on how authentic this gender equality is in flag football on and off the field. And it's something we talk about all the time. It's something that we parade around as an equality thing that many sports probably think that they have that kind of equality. But things like that done in the background without fanfare, without having to promote it everywhere on social media, and just having women involved at every stage of life and supported and continuing to be supported through that is something that's so special to me. And I guess when I grow, like I'm having a girl, and when she grows up, she has such a wonderful world to grow up into. I'm so proud and so grateful for that. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose just, we'll obviously talk about yourself as the voice of flag football, but actually what's great to see is that there's many voices and female voices that are developing. So we had the opportunity to meet up with Rebecca Landa, formerly of Team Mexico, now ESPN Mexico, covering all of the Mexican and American matchups for her network back home. Ashley Docking, who has worked with WFS previously, also voicing the medal games. So I think what's great is as part of that presentation, it's great to see that now it's not just a commentator, but actually we're getting used to not just, I guess, the stars on the field, but also that familiar, that friendly voice helping to tell the story for those watching at home. And technology, like you say, has been a huge part of that. So I think in terms of the presentation of the tournament, IFAF and with the NFL support really upping the game on every level, which is great to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And how cool that all of those voices are from different continents, different countries. There's Canada, Italy, Nausicaa, Del Orto was over there from Italy. I'm obviously from Australia, where American football is growing so quickly. And we've got an NFL game coming to Melbourne in just a few weeks. And then we've got, Mexico. There's always been a ground for American football and such a big flag football nation. All of these different accents mixed into the broadcast, I think really is fantastic and reflects what global flag football is, because so many people play it in so many different countries. It's not just American football, it is played around the world. And I think a big thing for me in commentary is, you hear the phrase in media, you can only be what you can see. And we used to say that about young women looking up towards female mentors, people that they admired, that they could look to their career and say, actually, that is possible. That's a pathway for me. I can see it and I could totally be that. In commentary, I always say, you can't hear it, you can't be it. If you can hear it, you can be it as well. And there are now increasingly an awareness for women that we can be commentators as well, whereas that is still, I think, very far behind in other sports, and certainly in American football. There are far fewer women doing the play-by-play and analysis jobs than there are in different codes, but it's changing, and flag football is leading that change. And authentically by IFAF and the NFL, who are very closely involved in the broadcast, the NFL, they wanted to really make that point. So, yeah, I think it's just awesome. And for all the girls that are out there watching, it's just that little extra bit of encouragement that, hey, this is a place for me, and it's a place for boys and girls and men and women, that we can all play this amazing sport.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the geographical spread is actually a really interesting point as well, because I think one of the concepts that, in my opinion, is really important to the growth of the sport is not just having interest in your own friends, your family, and even your own national team, but how do you recognise that the stars of the sport, whoever they are, I won't name, but there was one player that I met who wasn't able to participate in this tournament, and I went over to say hi to him, and they said, how do you know who the hell I am? And actually, to that point, my thing is, well, why shouldn't I? Actually, we're having this conversation, a Scotsman, a woman from Australia talking about Mexicans and Canadians and all the different countries that are representing the sport. And I think it's that global recognition of the players across the world is really key to the growth of the sport, and it's great to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially since it's going to be an Olympic sport. One of the keys for the Olympic sports is that they are global, and flag football is truly global, as we saw.
Absolutely. So, as I mentioned, it's been 10 days and there's been a lot pushed out there in terms of the results of the tournament. We've already done a podcast with the full Tartan Touchdown team in terms of our own reflections, but just a quick rapid recap of the headlines for anyone who's missed it. In the women's bracket, Canada women were the big story. They clinched the gold. It was a 27-20 victory over the USA. It's a final that came right down to the wire, and that's Canada's first world title since 2014. On the men's side, the final was probably a bit more one-sided, you'd have to say. The USA men winning 46-26 over Italy. However, it's really worth noting that the US men were taken to the limit several times during the tournament, both Mexico, a game that you called, Japan in the quarterfinals, and of course Samoa ending at a 14-year win streak of the American men, which, it's great to see that getting that level of competition.
Yeah, I mean, the men were really fascinating to me, and I think there is a much lesser gap than there ever has been in men and women, but certainly the American men and losing was astonishing. They never lose. And I think it also goes to show part of what I love about flag football is that it's a very offensive game. It's high scoring and it can be very tight. And if you're not great on defense on that day, that team can beat you. Anyone can kind of beat anyone on any day if you've got the right settings. And that's exactly what happened with Samoa, American Samoa beating the Americans. And, I think that's going to happen more and more. It's a good thing that those men in the red, white, and blue are not untouchable. And I think they took the loss really well and they obviously bounced back and they went on to win the gold. But they admitted, American Samoa were fantastic. And on that day, on that game, they were better. And that is part of what is so exciting because when we get to the Olympics in LA in 2 years, it means that really the field is going to be wide open. Anyone could be playing anyone and beating anyone. And one loss, you drop one game, you're kind of out. So it's thrilling, to be honest, and fantastic for us viewers and fans around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, it wasn't just medals that were in play at this tournament. Of course, Olympic berths were there to be clinched. So Canada women with the gold got a spot in LA, but they were joined by their men's team who defeated Mexico in the bronze medal match. Italy, of course, with the silver medal, getting their berth. And the Mexican women also getting a bronze to punch their ticket to LA 28. I guess one of the big reflections in this tournament is that perhaps more than ever, fourth place is the most painful slot of all. You're missing out on both medals, but of course, the direct route to LA. So in that case, it was Mexico's men who lost in overtime. And of course, Great Britain's women in a game that you called against Team USA missed out. But of course, only half the field is set. And these teams and of course, everyone else is essentially back in play to go again, starting with the Continentals in 2027 as the route into the qualifying series in the summer of 28.
How exciting. Let's go. We go.
It's as simple as that. It's great to see that the stakes, I think, have never been higher. And I think that really reflected in the standard of play at this tournament. But you've talked about this a little bit already, but maybe just tell us, Kate, what are some of your main takeaways from the tournament?
Yeah, sure. I put up a video on social media with 3 main takeaways, but to be honest, I had about probably up to 10. I think 4 or 5 certainly could have made it into that video. Number 1, and we've just touched on it now, the USA can be beaten. And that for a long time was just not a reality. In Finland, the American men were totally dominant. Even in the gold medal match, it really never looked like losing throughout the entire 4-day tournament. And the women were less so, but certainly they had one main rival, and it was Mexico. So I'd count Mexico women in part of that old guard. But both those teams ended up being beaten, and Canada got on top for the gold, which was so fantastic to see. What a thriller in the final match, going down to the final seconds, the final play of the game, and Akemi Higa with the new quarterback trying to find Madison Fulford in the end zone, missing by half a yard. That's exactly what we want for a gold medal match in a world championship. It shows the level of every other nation is just rising, and everyone is getting closer and closer to that American standard. Now, the Americans love to say they're the gold standard, right? But we haven't seen them win the gold in Chengdu at the World Games. We haven't seen them win the gold in Panama. And I wonder how long that's going to be around. And I suppose Americans are going to continue being confident, and they should be, about their winning record. But increasingly, the US can be beaten. And I think that is fantastic. That's certainly the main takeaway. My second one was in the women's competition. And it's someone that we have not spoken about a lot. And I don't think has received much media attention. I didn't hear much about her while she was there, but I've been watching the Canadian coach, Rochelle Lassard, since I met her in Chengdu. And I rode the bus with the Canadian girls for back and forth to the tournament and got to know the team quite well during that time at the World Games. And she impressed me so much. She's such an incredible leader of women, but she's also got this track record of winning. She was a world champion herself. She's played and coached flag football for 30 years. She was in college and now coaches, and obviously now coaches the national team. And all of this comes into her coaching abilities. So she's obviously an incredibly experienced game maker, but she's also a great leader. And I saw that when I met her and I watched the girls interacting with her on the bus. I think she's got this X factor, and it certainly is a different X factor to the other coaches because she is a female. Increasingly, that is going to be an interesting point of difference. She's one of the only women coaches coaching the national team. And women do get coached differently to men. I don't want to make broad sweeping statements because I don't think they're helpful. And I think every team is very different. And some women will do better with a male coach and so on. But in this particular situation, this woman and these women are really gelling. And I sort of think of her like she's kind of a smiling assassin, similar to, I would say, Emma Hayes, the former Chelsea manager who's now leading the US women's soccer team. Of course, 7 titles with Chelsea and, on a Paris Olympics gold for Emma Hayes. But she's just off the field. She's fun. You'd want to be her best friend. And, she's joking around. But when they're playing and when they're coaching and on the field, they turn into absolute masterminds. And I think it's a really interesting thing to watch the way that Rochelle Lassard coaches compared to other nations. She was constantly looking to the next play, sort of telling her players to forget whatever just happened, whether good or bad, keeping them level. Very interesting style of coaching, and certainly it worked. So I think she's going to get some more raps, and deservedly so, as we continue through the pathway to the Olympics. They're already locked in. So you might even think they'd be in that gold medal game at the moment with the USA. If it was played tomorrow, probably it would be a conversation between Canada, USA, and Mexico. So I think they're very much in the conversation for gold in LA, and it would be a huge coup to take the gold from the Americans on their home soil. That is something the Americans will do everything not to happen. It's going to be massive. So that's my second. I guess the others were more about one of them, Great Britain, knocking on the door. Great Britain women look outstanding. They have leveled up and up and up. And since Chengdu, I think, then they went to the Euros and obviously won. And they have really come together. Again, their coach, Jack Reed, a male coach, doing a great job there. And he's clearly found what works. He's found the key to unlock this team. And it is really working. They're gelling together really well. I think they could beat the USA. They did push the US really to the final drive in that semi-final, and they were unlucky in the end not to win it. The other takeaways I'd say are that this is a sport that is truly and genuinely global, thrilling, fantastic to be part of, made for live audiences and TV in ways that we never could have predicted. In Dusseldorf, we saw stadiums that were made for flag football, sellout crowds, TV broadcasts that would do this sport justice and did, and investment and marketing from the NFL. All of those things coming together, and there's still a long way to go with many of those things. We could be doing more. But you saw and you had a glimpse of the excitement around it when you put all those things together. And you remember that sport is not just a game anymore. It is a TV show. It's a merchandise opportunity. It's all of those things. And any great TV show's got to have music. It's got to have great actors and storylines. And it's got to have incredible, atmosphere. And this event did all of that. I think that people who are wondering what flag football is or still a little bit skeptical about the potential growth of this sport should go and look at that Dusseldorf as a study in what could be. If that was a taster for what we're getting ahead of LA and ahead of professionalizing with the NFL league that's coming, we are in for a real treat.
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more in terms of the presentation. I think that's so important. And of course, the medal games rightly got the most amount of focus in terms of the broadcast and viewership, but being on the ground, a perfect example of that for me was the sort of the main event of the first day of the tournament. They had Germany's men against Switzerland's men on the main field, last game of the night, big crowd. They played the anthems for what was just a group game. They had the DJ in, the crowd was rocking. GB men were actually playing in the other field against France at the time. So we could just hear this constant wall of noise going off, not just because of scores either, but just because the crowd was so amped. And I think, of course, that benefits from the host playing at a neighbouring country because the Swiss brought a fantastic support as well, it has to be said. But yeah, I think these are the things that really help people to make the emotional connection. We have the streams, and they've been a part of International Flag now for a number of years, but actually being able to see people who are engaging with the sport just as something to watch, as a
Mm,
source of entertainment and support. I think that's a big part of it. And I know IFAF had released the figures. I think there's in excess of 20,000 people over the 4-day event.
yeah.
And certainly for those final medal games, it was standing room only. You had obviously the grandstand, you had people behind the end zone, you had the VIP section even overlooking it. So the pitch properly surrounded, and you think ahead to LA and potential pro leagues. Packed stands are going to be a part of this sport as much as the
Hmm.
product.
And I think, yeah, we've always had the streams. You're absolutely right. We've always had the opportunity to get into this sport. But if you don't play it and you see a one camera stream that's positioned down the end of one end zone and it's blurry and there's no commentary and you can't really see who's who, you have no idea who the players are. It's a grey, sort of grainy stream on YouTube. It's not the sort of thing that I'm really interested in tuning in. No one is, right? It's sport. Sport is a TV show now. And I mean, I'm pretty passionate about this as someone in women's sport, particularly, that's not traditionally had the investment that men's sport have. You throw in 30 cameras, you throw in great commentary, you throw in all of the things that you've just mentioned about the live presentation with music and crowds, and even just crowd noise adds so much to a game. Even with no commentary, crowd noise is a huge impact. We had all of the replays and slow motion stuff and build up through the game, and we could still be doing a lot more, and I think we will be. But all of that makes flag football so fantastic. And it's actually made for TV too, right? These games are short. They're like an hour and 15 minutes. You're not sitting there for 3 hours like an NFL game, which is thrilling as they may be. There can be a lot of dead space. There is something happening on every single play, on every single drive for flag football. I think if you're not a brand looking at putting your brand next to flag football, there's something wrong with you, because this is absolutely perfect for audiences, both live and online and on broadcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And one point I'd love to circle back to is obviously you mentioned about Rochelle Lessard and the coaching masterclass that she put on, but I think what's becoming more evident in the sport is actually the importance of coaches, which of course has always been an important role, but I think their impact is starting to become more evident. We talked obviously about Canada, but even in the men's final, which yes, it wasn't perhaps the instant classic of the women's gold medal, but one of the keys there, the US men didn't turn up. They'd scouted Luke Zaradka. They knew his tendencies. They were prepared for him. That was important. You mentioned the growth of Team GB, and of course that's been Jack Reed, an American who's coached in Panama previously. I guess with the spectre of the Olympics looming, a lot of programs will now be looking at what they have. Are they in a position to make a move? And yes, the talent on field is going to be central to that. But also key is going to be, do we have the right coach? Do we need to go international? Is a female coach actually part of that key bond that we need to get out the best? So obviously you've kind of brought that into the conversation already, but coaching feels like a key focus point going forward.
Definitely. And Yeah, I think that Rochelle Lassard obviously has such experience and incredible knowledge of the game that she's a no-brainer, right? We do need to be looking more at women coaches who have played the game and have that experience of knowing how women work well together in a way that men may not. And certainly, I think men can coach women really well as well, depending on the group. But we should be looking for the best, and teams who want to be the best should be going out and getting the best. And increasingly, that's probably going to become a conversation. If Emma Hayes can be brought over to the US soccer team from England, I think that other teams would be looking at Rochelle Lassard going, all right, well, we know what she can do. I don't think she's going to move out of Canada anytime soon. I think she's at a
Not at
really
all.
good spot there. But as this game develops and evolves, that's certainly the next step. Coaching, dramas, another storyline for people like you guys and podcasts and journalists to cover. It just makes more excitement, doesn't it? It's even more thrills. And you probably will be looking at the assistant coaches to become head coaches in different countries. I mean, we know that Saeed Mortazavi was a coach in Panama and he was coaching with Jack Reed, who is now Great Britain coach. So the head coach of the USA and Great Britain both worked for Panama at one stage. That's what's happening already. It's pretty cool when you trace back some of the flag football coaching stories because they all come from similar trees. It's just like,
Yep.
looking at an NFL team from the 90s where the 49ers had all of the coaches that are now head coaches and so on, like early 2000s. Yeah, yeah. So it's another part of the game that's just going to fascinate fans and more storylines. It's only a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess one perhaps slightly more somber topic that kind of sprung to my mind from the tournament was the role of injuries in this tournament. So we know this is part of any sport, but having seen it up close, and of course you've been on the ground at multiple tournaments previously, it felt like there was more serious injuries being suffered by the players. I mean, a prominent one was Linnea Bryan suffered an ACL injury, we believe, for Team USA. I know that it was actually an Australian player who broke their leg during the tournament. And perhaps most worrying of all, we did hear a story of one player playing through a concussion, which was diagnosed during the tournament. Now, obviously, we're hearing that firsthand, so I don't want to perhaps go into specifics on that, but I guess player welfare has to be a concern as the sport grows. Certainly, we saw two GB players, both from the men's and women's side, leave matches in ambulances. Not to say that there's anything sinister there, but of course, the impact of these injuries that can have on a tournament and a team's prospects, not just for the World Championship, but of course, when there's Olympics and funding that comes with that, it feels like there's probably a perspective in terms of both rules enforcement, but also protecting the reserve players' spots needs to be looked at going forward, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I'd start off with saying that those injuries are a reality of sport and they happen in professional sport, whether or not it's a very advanced developed sport or it's your local leagues on a Saturday. Unfortunately, these things do happen, and things like an ACL are really common in flag football. I've done my ACL. I know the mechanisms. I was skiing, but certainly the level at which flag football is played high in the air with a lot of jumping coming down on one leg, there's a high risk factor. There's a lot of stepping movements that create torsion on the knee. Knee injuries are going to be common. And that the only thing we can do is sort of try to protect those players as much as possible through strength and conditioning programs. That is a challenge for teams that are going into camp 3 or 4 times for a weekend at a time before they head to a world championship. They probably do, and most teams do, have strength and conditioning coaches that are giving their players advice throughout the year, the months before that to prepare themselves. But it is down to individual players to be doing that prehab and to be strengthening. That's an area that I think more investment is going to only help prevent injuries. But sometimes those injuries are going to happen. And as you say, we will need more guidelines. I'm not sure. I'm certain that national teams would have guidelines on how those injuries are handled. And they certainly have the physios and doctors that can care for those players. But whether there need to be more stringent guidelines from an IFAF perspective, I don't know. It's hard because those things happen. As for I'm not sure about the circumstances of the concussion, but
Mm.
I believe there are concussion protocols that are followed, certainly. So, I mean, that happens all the time in Aussie rules football. There are players that are cleared for concussion and then later on they're not. I mean, concussion is a tough thing to happen because you can have no symptoms and develop them later. So
Yeah.
all we can do is have those things in place, and more investment will help with that because more doctors and physios and strength and conditioning coaches will be available. Sadly, though, I think that those things probably here to stay increasingly as the game gets bigger and more competitive. It's probably going to happen more. So, I mean, I really hope Linnea Bryan can, recover fully and get back to where she was. I've no doubt she will. She's certainly a huge loss for the USA. And that example is a good one because the way that they then played, they clearly missed her. Their defense really missed her. Would that have changed the outcome? Maybe, So, yeah, best wishes to those players that got injured. Their injuries suck. They're a part of sport. They do make you stronger, but no one wants that to happen to them. And it's the worst thing. So,
Yeah. Absolutely. And as a fan of the New York Giants, like you say, it happens at all levels. I know that there's skullduggery that happens around that concussion protocol, even at the top levels of the sport. So, yeah, at the end of the day, we just want to see our players healthy and on the field as much as possible. I guess just looking at a local topic for a second, it'd be great to get your perspective on the Australian program. Obviously, both entered the tournament as the Oceania champions, the men as the Asia Oceania champions, neither progressing from the group stage, but certainly still with aspirations both for 2020 and even looking a little bit further ahead to hosting in Brisbane in 2032. What do you think's next for the program after this tournament?
well, to start off with, the Australian program has been totally overhauled in the past couple of years, and they've really invested in developing players. So you would have noticed that most of the players, I think all of the players from Finland are no longer, they've been turned over, right? There's a whole new squads. So these are players that have come from a lot of other sports that we have in Australia, a lot of rugby players, rugby league, rugby union. In Australia, we have professional women's leagues in rugby league, rugby union, and also Aussie rules football. So there are women that are playing and being paid to play these sports already that are competing with flag football, which is not professional yet. That's one of the struggles that we have because some of the best athletes I think that we could be getting from those sports are already being paid. And certainly there's probably a few more that could come in before LA. And the Australian mentality has been, we are going to play the best players. And if you can show us that you deserve a spot on the team, you'll be playing. So if you want to come and win a gold medal at the Olympics, you can. You got to try out and follow all of the processes that all the players do. But I think that competitiveness is going to be really good. As for what happened in Dusseldorf, I mean, they were really unlucky. That there was some flashes of brilliance, and I think watching those games, you can see the potential that's there. They are new squads. They are teams that have not played together for very long. They're up against Americans that have played together for years, many of them in and out of the squad, but certainly like all of them have been in and out of camp for the past couple of years, and most of them were playing in Chengdu or playing in Finland. The Australians, very new to international competition, coming from the other side of the world. There's probably an element of the jet lag and the change in time zone that doesn't help. Not that you can blame that, but I really think that any team and any day can beat anyone in flag football. And that's sort of what happened with a couple of our matchups. I don't want to make excuses because we should have done better. And I think we probably were expecting to go a little higher than what we ended up finishing with. But having said that, there were flashes of brilliance. And I think everyone can start to see what Australia could be and, leave us behind at your peril. Don't think about us at your peril because we did already, do so well at Asia Oceania. This was a bit of a disappointment, but I don't think it's reflective of the program. Program is really good. Development is outstanding. Our young kids, especially the teenagers that are coming through in the juniors, are incredible because they're being caught before they go to rugby league or before they go to another sport. Their talent is amazing, and I do think we're going to level up quickly. Remember, we're a small country too, Gav. I mean, we got what, 25 million people. We're up against like places with 300 million people. So Aussies, we're overachieving really for our standard. But I do think they were unlucky. They're going to come good. You
Yeah.
wait.
Absolutely. And I think you're quite right. So, I mean, just more broadly, I think every program's on a slightly different timeline. And yes, this was the first opportunity to make it to LA, but it's not the last. I mean, even within, different countries, even the men's and women's programs on slightly different timelines. I think GB is a great example of that, where the women, I think, absolutely went into this one expecting to get an LA berth here. Of course, they'll go again, but our men, similar to the Australian programs, bit of retooling going on there. This is very much about the experience, but you'll certainly see that not just for GB, but for a number of the programs. I think China, another one that's only going to get better, and it's really exciting to see, because with that 18-month ish bit of roadway to the Q series, there's still a lot of work to be done, and I think a lot of these programs will really advance. Just one final topic before we wrap up, and we mentioned a little bit about the sport isn't quite professional yet, but the spectre of professionalism, especially after this tournament, is looming large. We've already seen that the WFS is launched, and they very cleverly sandwiched their announcement of WFS 2 on the other side of this tournament after kicking off the month prior to World Flag. There was representatives from multiple pro leagues present at this tournament, and perhaps most notably Tomorrow Sports, who are behind the NFL Flag League project. It just feels like it's a really exciting time. We know that players are being approached, and not just for players, but coaches, fans, broadcasters, and podcasters. We're reaching this inflection point where it's not just about that one marquee event per year in the IFAF Championships. We're going to see potentially a string of high-profile flag events, a full flag calendar throughout the year over the coming months and years.
Yeah, and how great for the sport. I mean, it's fantastic. The more pro leagues we can get going, the better. I think that creates competition in itself, because each league wants to be the league. There's no doubt that the NFL's backing is going to set up Tomorrow Sports for that, and I cannot wait to see how it all goes. And it's about time. This sport is made for TV. As I said, it's made to be commercialized. It's a fantastic, lightning quick sport with all of the elements that you'd love to watch, from basketball, rugby, soccer, all of the skills of catching and 360-degree running and scanning and team play and throwing. There's not many sports that have all of those skills in demand. And at each play, each 7-second play on display in full throttle. It's the most incredible display of athleticism that you could want in a sport that goes for under an hour and a half, that involves countries around the world at a level that is unprecedented. It is made to be commercialized, and it's about time that the players, the athletes, saw some of that commercial return back in their pockets, because at the moment, all of those players have been playing and spending their money and really investing because they love it. But it shouldn't just be that way. It should be that once brands start making money from it, which they are, they've got to get some of that return. So the faster we can professionalize, the better. Everything that's moving towards that is a good thing. And all of the leagues that are doing that, including WFS and Tomorrow Sports, I think fantastic. And kudos to them for getting things rolling first, because someone has to. It's going to be a risk at the start, but I think the reward is going to be massive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's just what we want to see. Some breaking news, really, as we record this, that Izzy Geraci has become the latest talent to be signed as an ambassador for Tomorrow Sports. So we know that she joins Ashley Clam and Vanita Crouch as sort of American role models, but obviously as international followers of the sport, we're really excited to see how players from the different continents become a part of it, and perhaps even the players who are perhaps not part of the leading programs currently, but perhaps as individual athletes, they can be big contributors and help to promote the sport. We know that there's a number of them in various different teams. Certainly, selfishly, we would love to see the likes of Jock Frimpong or Amelie Processhaw representing in a future pro league. But certainly, the more that we can have that representation, both male and female, across the globe, I think it's going to be great for the development of the sport, and it's a really exciting time.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better, Gav. And Tartan Touchdown, I'll be there covering it, right?
Yeah, that's the goal. That's absolutely the goal.
Awesome.
It's been an incredible couple of weeks, but I think what we're really seeing is already there's a roadway to Continentals next year and LA looming in the distance. So yeah, we're really excited to be a part of it. And likewise, it's always great to have you on, Kate, to speak about this. So we really thank you for your taking the time. And obviously, when the time's right, we look forward to hearing you back in the booth. But all the best with the growing family and everything that's to come. It's an exciting adventure.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gav. Yeah, a new little receiver, maybe a quarterback coming your way very, very soon. So, yeah, it's very exciting time. But thanks so much for including me. And thanks to everyone in the flag football world for tuning in. And hopefully, I did the athletes justice. And we'll see each other again soon at the next one, probably boots on the ground, Gav.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks so much, Kate. It sounds like a deal there.
Thank you. I hope so. See you there.
That was a fantastic interview with Kate, and really so many stories coming out from IFAF World Flag 26. Of course, it feels like it's a long road to the next major tournament right now, but there's still so many stories, both from the field and the players that made the action so great coming out. Please stick with Tartan Touchdown for all your latest content, interviews, reflections, news, and updates. If you're not following already, please make sure to subscribe both on Instagram, on TikTok, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure that our latest content goes straight to the top of your feed so you can find out what's going on. If this is your first time listening, we really hope you enjoyed. And wherever you are, thanks for joining us. We'll see you again soon.